here today with Judge Pamela Pryor-Demby, former President Judge of the Court of Common Pleas in the Philadelphia court system, the First Judicial District. Thanks, Judge. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Sure, it's a lot of fun. As I said, we like to start at the beginning, so if you could tell us about where you came from and your family and education and that sort of thing. We start out that way, and I appreciate it.
Okay, well, I grew up in a small town outside Cleveland, Ohio. I came here to Philadelphia on a summer job while I was in college. Things happened, as we all know, and ended up staying here, getting married, starting to have my family, and then I went to Temple Law School when my oldest was 2. We were the second class that had any noticeable number of women in it. Peter Lee, of course, really went out of his way to make it work for the women students, but there were still urinals in the women's bathroom at the law school. Some bright soul put geraniums in each of them.
What else are you going to do with them, right?
But law school, I decided, was one of those events that's like taking off a Band-Aid. Just do it as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So we did 3-year day and lived to tell the tale.
Good, good. That's great, but it still must have been a little bit of a trial with the 2-year-old daughter at the time.
It was. I went off to my first set of exams, and she stood there in the doorway and went, "Mommy, don't leave me."
I'll be back. I'll be back soon. So, and then you went to Temple for law school, and then once you were a lawyer, what did you do? Did you go into practice?
Went into a small practice with another woman by the name of Sandra Swenson. We had a small number of lawyers working for us at various times, including Martha Alio, who went on to be my law clerk for more than a quarter century.
A bright woman.
Yes, very. And back in those days, the late 70s, early 80s, you could have a general practice. I don't think you can do that except maybe in small towns these days. So we did civil and criminal and real estate and business and bankruptcies, the whole 9 yards.
So today, the small practices are more concentrated or more...
They're much more specialized.
Yeah.
I think that when I came out of law school, the malpractice suits against lawyers were essentially unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were able to get by being jacks of all trades.
Okay.
But as the number of lawyers increased and as the malpractice factor became real, people started specializing ever so much more, and I think that's much more common these days.
Oh, okay. I think I might have met Sandy Swenson up in Nova Scotia.
That could be. Yeah. She's been an avid sailor for many years.
She was sailing at the time. Yeah. All right, so you were in a small practice, and how long did you do that?
A dozen years.
Yeah, okay, so a good time.
And I got involved in local Democratic politics, ended up being a committeeman and then a ward lawyer, and fairly standard road to the bench.
Okay, that was it. I mean, then you decided to run for office as a judge.
And fortunately, I only had to do it once.
Yeah, well, that's great, isn't it?
I hate learning experiences.
Get it over with.
You got it.
The Band-Aid rule again. Now, where did you start out with your judicial career?
Well, I started out in criminal court, which back then was in City Hall.
Right.
So Judge Mary Collins and I had these twin courtrooms that had sort of like old-fashioned saloon doors up on the 7th floor of City Hall.
Yeah.
And the place was amazing. One morning there was a bird flying around in the courtroom. Another time there was a bat going down the hallway.
Up in the upper floor of City Hall.
Yep.
And the holding cell was up there too.
Yes, it was. It was.
So now all the cases are heard, all the criminal cases are heard at the criminal justice.
Yes, which made things ever so much easier.
Well, that's great. So you did that. You were a criminal judge, and then you eventually sat in some civil capacity, or no?
What happened was I was put into civil motions court, which back then did much of what the Commerce Court does today.
Okay.
And for a year, I overlapped with Judge Joe O'Keefe.
Right.
And then he rolled out, and Mary Collins came on.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, as I did the Commerce Court much later.
Good.
So then I went back, and I was the supervising judge over in criminal court. And
I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
And then ran for president judge just in time to have the economy totally crash. And
It was your responsibility, and there was no money.
exactly. We literally got down to $10,000 in the court bank account.
Mm.
And we're one of the few court systems that stayed open, didn't fire people, and didn't cut programs.
Yeah, but there were quite a few who did.
Sure.
Yeah.
And many of them have not recovered from that.
Yeah.
It was pretty exciting.
Once again, I'm finished with that. Let me move on.
Well, there were many terrific people who worked within the court system to keep us going.
I remember trying to justify everything that the unit that I was working in was doing,
and that was just about the time that we finally pushed to going electronic on the civil side, which saved
Right.
huge amounts of money.
Okay.
And then we discovered that what I guess we'd always known is that we are a pass-through agency. All the fines and costs and all sorts of monies that we collect, almost all of it goes through to the city and then the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so the city simply couldn't pay us. They had no money. So I said, "That's all right, Mayor. We'll just hang on to it until this is all over."
Don't you worry.
He said, "You can't do that. I'll sue you." And I said, "Yeah, but by the time that gets resolved, we'll be out of this recession, and I won't care."
Did it work?
It worked.
Good. Well, during your career, either when you're, when you were a lawyer or as a judge, was there somebody who I think has been referred to as a giant of the law, somebody who was a symbol for you, or somebody whom you might have really admired and wanted to emulate or followed in some way?
Well, not so much wanted to emulate, but I learned an awful lot from and got an awful lot of support from the older judges. And when I was a lawyer, a number of lawyers, Dave Savita used to be the court administrator,
Right.
and a terrific homicide judge took me under his wing. A couple of other judges, Judge Sam Lair, pushed me to try things that I hadn't tried before.
Good.
And I was very grateful for that. And the women judges who went before me, Myrna Marshall, Carolyn Temin,
Right, yeah.
Lisa Rochette, incredibly bright women.
I'll say, yeah.
And they all still lived in the real world. And
Okay,
yeah,
like you.
so you could maintain some sense of balance as you
Yeah,
stagger through this life.
good. And at the same time, you widen your horizons. Yeah, that's great. What do you think was the proudest moment of your legal career?
I think when I knew that the court system was safe, when we got through this terrible recession and we weren't going to have to dismantle ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, an institution ceases to function there's an awful lot that are things and people and people's lives and everything else that are attached to that institution and would have been adversely affected had you closed down.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were talking about, as every court system was, skipping paydays, things like that.
Yeah.
And as you well know, we have many, many people here in our court system for whom missing a mortgage payment or a car payment or a kid's tuition payment is catastrophic.
Like anybody.
Yeah.
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 So.
I remember they were voluntary, they were taking volunteers to possibly take furloughs that they would.
If we got to that point, yeah.
Or maybe working a 4-day week, or I can't remember all the ideas that came up at the time, but none of them ever came into play.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, right. And so you think you're probably the proudest moment that you've had is being able to bring the court through that
I think so.
period? Yeah.
I think so. That and it was the collaborative effort of so many people. Everybody was rowing in the same direction.
Right, yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah, it was definitely a time of teamwork, I remember that. I have a list.
Cool.
I have a great list. See, I asked you the proudest moment, and yet you didn't mention one of these 24 leadership positions, the president of the State Conference of State Trial Judges, Pennsylvania Judicial Auditing Agency, the National Conference of Metropolitan Courts, the PA Bar Association's Criminal Law Section, the Brehon Law Society, and on and on and on. But these weren't important to you, is the fact that the court should live on and still be a functioning institution.
Yes.
Okay.
For any of these, there are many terrific people who can fill those roles and have filled those roles, and thank goodness fill them after any of us are done with them.
Yeah.
But, you know, our central mission here is to have the courts open and providing justice.
That's great. I also wanted to ask you, what's the favorite thing you've done in your career? What did you enjoy the most?
I enjoyed being in court. It's fascinating. It's ever so much better than TV. The most amazing and funny things happen, and serious things happen, and it's some of it's scripted, but an awful lot of it is you just never know what's coming in. I've just always loved that.
Do you have any stories or
Oh,
examples
boy.
about any of this? I'm guessing you might.
I might, yes.
Maybe there are too many. I don't know. You know.
Well, once upon a time when I was in civil motions court, one of the jobs you had was closing down dirty restaurants and massage parlors.
Oh, right.
So a lawyer,
Those massages, yeah.
a pretty well-known lawyer, comes into court and he goes, "Your Honor, you can't close it down. It's against the Constitution."
Yeah.
I go, "Yes, counsel." He said, "It says right there, everyone's entitled to the pursuit of happiness."
And a massage.
That's what I figured. That's why they put those big sleeves on the robes. You could stuff it in your mouth.
Yeah, right, so you didn't laugh out loud. I like that one, I do. Do you have a sense of, is there a higher calling, or is it just, you know, you want to get the necessary job done, or do you have something else that drives you?
I guess it would be presumptuous to call it a higher calling. It's a serious job. It is something that you need to focus on with each little hearing or each big trial, and not let yourself become jaded or bored. It is so important to really listen to the litigants and their stories, and you have to work at it to maintain a sense of balance.
Yeah.
It's easy to become, I don't know, numb to things. It's easy to develop a sense of anger or any of several not very helpful emotions. And you
Yeah.
really have to work to keep that out of what you're doing and try to get people through this, and have them have the sense that they were listened to
Yeah.
and that you did the best you could. You know, you're not going to get them all right. They do give us erasers on the ends of pencils,
Right.
but
It might not be a bad philosophy of life to make sure you listen to what other people are saying.
indeed.
And of course, even the small cases are very important to the individuals that are bringing them.
Well,
so.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, fortunately, very few of our citizens get involved in murder trials or
Right, yeah.
multi-million-dollar corporate deals.
Yeah. So even those little ones are important. Do you think the practice of law has changed much since when you began and today?
Well, in some ways, I think people have to work harder to maintain personal relationships among the members of the bar, just because there are so many more people.
Yeah, somebody else mentioned the numbers are.
Yeah, and also it's nobody has time to think because of electronics. It used to be you'd talk to somebody on the phone and then you go, okay, so I'll write you a letter. So you would dictate a letter and you'd put that on your secretary's desk. And sometime in the next couple days, she'd get around to typing it.
Yeah.
And then she'd get it in the mail. And then it would get to his office. And then it would take a day, for it to get.
Right.
And so you had maybe a week to chew things over.
Yeah,
You didn't
right.
have to do snap decisions on your smartphone on the train on the way home, the way lawyers do now.
Yeah.
I think that part of it must be very much not fun, that they
Yeah.
can't get away from the practice of law.
Oh, I
It's a
guess
wonderful
so.
business, but
Yeah, right. It's not something you want to do 24 hours a day.
I would think not.
No. And so back when you began, you said you had time to think things over, and today people don't because some lawyers don't because there's just no time that's allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess everybody would necessarily be more driven by the time constraints. So,
I think there is a strong tendency, and as you know, the whole technology revolution is still
Yeah.
relatively new, so
Right.
it's evolving, and people's ability to cope with it will evolve.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have every faith in that.
I do.
Yeah, good.
People are very adaptable.
Yeah, good. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us tonight while we're talking?
Well, I guess just that I feel so very fortunate. The practice of law and the practice of being a judge is a constant learning experience. Every case you learn something you didn't know
Yeah.
before. My recently retired law clerk is still walking around muttering about black mold in buildings and things that we probably could have gone through life without knowing quite
Right,
well,
right,
but there
yeah.
you are. But every case has something like that, and I just feel really fortunate to have had a role in, I think, an important part of our
Yeah.
social system.
Oh, it is very important. The institution of the judiciary, I think, is really, really important, and it's a middle ground for people.
Mm-hmm. And it gave me the chance to meet and work with literally thousands of absolutely terrific people. And I don't just mean lawyers and judges, I mean all the people who work for the court system. It's really been absolutely wonderful.
That's good, and I think they need to hear that too. So I'm glad you said it. Well, thanks for coming today.
Well, thank you.
I think I'm cutting you short, but I'm not sure. I think you have a lot more in there that I should be trying to delve into. But at any rate, I wanted to tell you I appreciate that you came down today to your former chambers and spoke with us. And I like all the things that you said, and I'm still going to get in touch to see what else you didn't tell me today. Okay?
We can always do a round two.
All right. Thanks, Judge. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Okay.